one of the things to come out of day one was a stark parallel between what Apple's doing with the App Store and what console makers have done with games. It's been mentioned before, but it was laid out pretty clearly. This 30% thing isn't new.
Yeah, this was a really big theme, especially for Apple. They're basically saying, why are you suing us when all of the other platforms, or almost all of the other platforms that you publish your games on, have the same rules? They are charging you 30% as a commission. They are not permitting side loading. They're not permitting you to basically launch your own app store, which is what Epic is asking Apple or the court to tell Apple to do. And they're not forcing you, or they're forcing you to use their own in-app payment system. And so they're saying, why? At one point, Apple's lawyers pulled up a chart that had, I think, Microsoft, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo on it. And then it listed these three topics, these three things that Epic is asking for, and made Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic, go through each individual box and say, yes, yes, yes. And so that was definitely a big theme for Apple. And Sweeney's and Epic's answer is basically there's a different business model. The app stores don't need to take a 30% commission. They can charge way less because that's how much it costs to run an app store. Whereas a console maker actually is losing money on the hardware, and they're trying to make it up on these commissions. And so he's trying to make that distinction, but it's very technical. I
said there were no sketches, but here are sketches.
Yes,
there are sketches. So, I mean, does it come down to if you make money, then we get to decide as developers how much you get to charge us? I mean, because, yes, I mean, the console gaming model in the past had to do with using the hardware as a loss leader. But, Apple very clearly in all the games it's in to make money, should that be held against them?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of part of the question, part of the big question that's happening here. And that's kind of what Apple is trying to say. They were really telling a story of, like, listen, the App Store, Tim Cook likes to use the phrase economic miracle. And we've created, hundreds of billions of dollars of value. And all of these app developers, they're businesses that they wouldn't exist without the App Store. And that is a thriving market. And I think they even use a phrase similar to, like, that is what, an antitrust regulator dreams of. And so they were definitely trying to paint that picture. And they were also trying to paint a picture of many options for app developers and specifically game developers to publish. So that's why they were really, sticking with the, like, look at all these gaming consoles. There's no monopoly. And Epic's argument is that Apple's own iPhone, its own product, is a monopoly.
Right. And Aaron, it feels like, yesterday sort of went in Apple's favor, especially because we're talking about all the gaming platforms, not just iOS. But what are the vulnerable spots for Apple and Cook that could be exposed over the next few weeks?
Well, I mean, I think in general, the tide is sort of turning against big tech. I mean, we've been seeing this sort of sentiment for a while. I mean, for one thing, it's one of the few issues, antitrust is one of the few issues that both Democrats and Republicans seem to sort of all be agreeing on. And so I think there is a little bit of, like, public sentiment that could influence the judge on this. I mean, they're obviously going to rule on the merits of the case, but they don't exist in a vacuum. And so it's very possible that all of these other antitrust cases that are coming, and also the potential class action lawsuits that we could see against Apple from both developers and from users, that could sort of influence the judge's thinking a little bit. But, there was a moment yesterday when the judge actually jumped in and said, listen, there's these other lawsuits that are coming, and you still went ahead and ignored them and did your own lawsuit. And, she sort of wanted to know why. And Epic kind of had to say, well, yeah. And so she's definitely thinking about that a little bit, too.
Right. And yesterday, Aaron, we were talking to Kara Swisher about the so-called Apple fight card, how many of those legal battles it is fighting. And she said that the Spotify case over in Europe is probably stronger because it actually directly competes with Apple Music. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's true. Apple has its arcade game thing, and there are some products that I think, and that was actually a case that Epic was trying to make yesterday, was they were painting a picture not of themselves as a gaming company, but they were really sticking to this metaverse idea that, you know, Fortnite is not just a game anymore. It has evolved into a place where people socialize and hang out and go to concerts, and it's like our virtual world. And so that's sort of the idea that Epic is trying to say, is that like this one company plus Google, or these two companies, basically control our access to our entire virtual world. And I think that is kind of the best case that they have.